Hello, everybody, and welcome to BLS028 Show and Tell with Kerry Ritter. Kerry, thanks for joining on.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
Awesome. Good to have you here. For those of you who don't know, maybe you can briefly tell something about yourself, what you're doing, and, well, anything you got to share.
Sure. So I am a software engineer. I'm working mostly in full stack TypeScript. So that kind of brings us to today, working on Dino and Momentum. I spend a lot of time working in Angular, a lot of time in Nest. I recently released a ebook through ultimatecourses.com, Nest.js Quick Start Guide. But today we're here to talk about Momentum Framework.
Momentum framework. Yeah, very cool. Yeah. So you're, I think we have pretty broad match in things we like to use in tech stack wise. Bar for Deno, I'm interested in it, but I never really written any Deno code. So that's going to be a first today. Well, not really a first, but a first serious attempt. Can you briefly tell us what you've done with it and how you got into it?
Sure. So to be honest, at first I was very hesitant to get into Dino. The author of Momentum, Lenny Keene, he did the majority of the actual like core of Momentum. Mm-hmm. He kept telling me about it for weeks and weeks and weeks. I'm like, no, it exists, man. I don't need Dino. Like, yeah, it looks cool and everything, and I'm excited about the things it's going to do, but we don't need that yet. Yeah. And then he started showing me what he was doing with Momentum, and I'm like, okay, I'm interested. So what I've done so far is I worked a lot in the CLI for Momentum, so the actual like spinning up of projects, spinning up of components, things like that. And we built a couple small APIs, but yeah, so started messing with Dino a few weeks ago, and
very cool.
It is very surprisingly good, and I was very much a skeptic, but very excited about it.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's a pretty common pattern. People being like skeptical about something unless they really try it. Yeah. I know for me, for example, TypeScript was one of these things, and when Angular team announced they would be using TypeScript, I was like, well, I don't know. It's coming from Microsoft. Microsoft was a different company at that time, so I was very biased. Yeah. So yeah, interesting. I've bought the course from Preston Lamb on Deno, and I took a few baby steps. But other than that, I didn't do a whole lot with it. But yeah, super excited. Cool. So Momentum Framework is basically a re-implementation of Nest.js or a clone of Nest.js in Deno. Is that a proper way to describe it?
It'll look like that. Like, it'll have a number of similarities. It's not really what we're going for. While we're definitely taking some inspiration from it, it looks very similar in that we're using decorators. We're decorating our routes kind of similarly, but we're not looking at Nest and saying, let's do that in Dino. We're really like looking at Nest, we're looking at ASP.NET and saying, of the frameworks that we've used, and between the both of us, we've experienced quite a bit of it. We've started to build that into what we feel is is a really strong framework. So the simplest way to say it is Nest in Dino, but it's not entirely accurate, and we're trying to avoid that, trying to look like we're ripping somebody off when we're really not intending to. But
yeah, cool. No, that makes total sense. But I think it's pretty common in our industry to always compare stuff to something that smells similarly, and
I'm not going to pretend I'm not going to pretend we're not similar. But
yeah, no, but it's also good. And I think like Nest never made a secret that it's based on, inspired by Angular, and so there's a lot to be said, like having these mental maps.
Yeah, Lenny had joked about, it's funny that Angular seemingly inspired by a backend framework. So Spring inspires Angular, inspires Nest, and now we've come full circle.
Yeah, so. Definitely interesting thing. Yeah, I definitely heard that that bridge that way, like Angular inspired by Java, Spring, .NET. So cool. Yeah, definitely full circle. So cool. Yeah, I think we can start actually sharing screen. Everybody that's watching knows that I love to have little talk and lots of code on the screen. So let me see if I can get this right. There we go. Cool. So the goal today is that Kerry will navigate and I will drive. So I will enter the commands, I will make mistakes and he'll try to correct them. And we do have a private chat where he can pass along messages. And the first thing got passed in here was the installation of the CLI. Now, The only preparation that I've done so far is make sure I have Deno on my system, which I have. And let me zoom this in even a little bit more, and this should be clearer. Yeah, that looks good. And then I can run the installer. And I think one of the most probably controversial things about Deno, if you compare it to Node, is that it doesn't have packages which you install locally, but it uses URIs to point to their packages.
Yeah, which made this very interesting because it's the whole new paradigm of how do we build CLI tools. So what you're running right now is a script that'll essentially download that locally into your cache and set you up with the MVF command.
Right. So yeah, I can totally imagine that this is a different paradigm. I've been working with Go quite a bit over the last year and a half, and it uses a similar thing where you point to basically a URL, often a GitHub repo or some specific repository, and that's about it. So no more Node modules. So that's one great advantage, I think.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, I wasn't really sure how that was gonna work out. I thought it was kind of weird. Yeah. And seeing deps.ts, I'm like, this seems like it's going to be really painful to keep up with. But after spending 8 hours in it, I'm like, okay, this is way better. And I can't believe I even like package.json ever. So yeah, I'm excited to have made the switch.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I definitely still going for that click. But yeah, I wouldn't be doubtful that that happens soon. And I also think, just a side note here, while I copy this command, I think a lot of people, because Node and Deno come from the same person, it uses a very similar runtime. It uses, well, it does a lot of things similarly.
Right.
They immediately think, oh, Deno's going to replace Node. And I personally don't believe that. I think like hardly any technology will ever be fully replaced. We still run with COBOL 40 years after.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's interesting to make the comparison, and yeah.
Yeah, we have a long way to go before Deno really starts taking a major hold in this area. Anyways, like fully replacing Node is a high task, much less building a significant market share, but it's got a lot of potential. So
yeah, very cool. So let's see. I now got MVF -- version. I should have this, but it doesn't. It might be that I don't have my path right.
Yeah, you might have to restart your terminal.
Seem like it. But I'm actually not even sure how I installed this Deno. This is already going nice for the demo effect.
Right. If anything, we can skip past the CLI.
Okay.
This would be a good example of the fact that we are an alpha framework essentially at this point.
Right.
But essentially what the MVF command was going to do for you is do some git clone work. So I could just send you that repo that you would be cloning.
Yeah.
I'm sure we could figure this out, but I don't really want to waste any of your time here.
At the starter repo that you linked inside the command here?
Yeah, that's, yep. Yeah, just git clone that guy.
Let's just clone it like this. And then go into here and open my editor. Right here. Let's put this one back and make sure that the editor loads in the screen. And there we go. So one thing I already like the idea of that your editor doesn't have to index the whole big void that is Node modules normally.
Yeah, I've not done Deno. I'm a Visual Studio Code user, so I've not seen how IdeaJ handles this.
Well, let's see how that works.
Yeah.
It looks like it's indexing a bunch of stuff, but let's first just start out with with opening it, and we can always switch to VS Code because I, of course, have it installed as well. So cool. So we got the demo cloned here, and I'll pop open a new terminal because I'm pretty sure that we're going to run some commands. But yeah, I think that the initial thing is like, hey, where's my package JSON? Well, there's not such a thing. So there's also no run scripts.
Well, we have scripts.yaml. So in Deno, you'll have a tool called Velociraptor. That's been the go-to for script runner. As of now, that's kind of its own tool. So you would kind of install that the same way we attempted to install the MVF command. And you kind of set it up similarly. So you define all your scripts here, but for now we can just copy and paste and run these. It's set up for the people that do want to use Velociraptor, but totally runnable without it. So there's just a lot of flags going on here, as you can tell.
Yeah.
One thing you can do if you want to get rid of all those allow flags, I was very explicit in those setups for the people that want to see what permissions we're using. But for people that don't know, with Dino, it's built like secure first, so to say, meaning you can't do things on your system until you say the script is allowed to do them. So in our case, allow net, allow environment, allow reading of the file system. You can't do those things until the script is executed with that permission. So I'm calling out all of them explicitly, but running Dino run -A, capital A, that allows all permissions, and we'll just allow it to run.
Yeah, this will get rid of all of these then.
Yep.
Very cool. But I think that's basically those two things, right? Having packages and node modules the way they are, and having insecure by default were reasons for Reindahl to re-implement or reconsider how we do it over again, if he could.
Yeah, and some of the things they're doing, so like you'll notice in here we have Dino form or VR format, VR test. We have all these things built into Dino, which I think is awesome. Because otherwise, if you want to run tests, you got to go install Jest or Jasmine. If you want to run format, you got to go get a Linter or Prettier. And while those are great tools, it's much nicer just having something good built into the actual the tool itself. So
yeah, totally agree. And FOMP is actually also one in the Go ecosystem and test as well. It just really helps a lot in building apps and skills. So these are things I like directly, and I don't really need to be convinced that these are the way to go. So pretty cool. Let's go ahead and run this. And it will download a bunch of dependencies.
Yeah, so what it's going to do first is going to analyze our deps file, look at all the dependencies we have. So typically with Node, you're actually installing these outright. With this, it's going to go get them at runtime, cache them to your local machine, and use those from then on. So that's how the whole URI resolution works in comparison to the package.json.
And now these packages are globally cached on my system. So I should always only have to download one package version at one time.
I believe it's global. Yeah, I don't know if they scope it based on which thing you're running, but I believe that is true.
Interesting. And now I got a platform oak listening on localhost 3000. So that's cool. That all went super quick. And I'm just gonna experiment. What I would do normally is the first thing is curl the page and see I actually got HTML output. So let's see what this renders to. Let me grab this tab here.
It is a beautiful design, but to any designers watching, please hit me up on Twitter.
It looks awesome, man. Yeah, no, this is super cool. And so yeah, this was a super painless installation, bar the fact that my CLI is not configured properly. This goes super quick. And yeah, let's see if we can get a little bit an idea of why this is, because I can imagine I need to install some sort of Deno plugin.
Yeah, with VS Code, there's a separate whole Deno plugin you need. Typically, because of the package resolution, it's obviously so much different that a lot of these kind of choke on it.
It looks like they have support here, so that's good.
Perfect.
And looks like it doesn't even want to restart. So
awesome.
But
yeah, you pointed out how fast it was. That is one big gain to me. This thing, it goes so quickly in comparison to Node, and especially on my Windows machine, which Node is a little bit slower about. Dino runs great. I love it.
That's that's a very fair point. I think with because this doesn't use something like Webpack, right, to bundle the thing, something that's like Nest.js dev server or NX Workspace dev server uses Webpack under the hood, and that definitely is a performance hit.
Yeah, with this, if you're not familiar, the TypeScript is actually built into Dino, so you don't have to transpile anything to JavaScript. It's just going to run straight up.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to quickly restart the editor here and see if that picks it up. And then we can actually start already building some functionality. This is going pretty smooth. But yeah, scripts.yaml is an interesting thing, and the name of this plugin that we use to run is
Velociraptor.
Velociraptor.
Yeah, one of the things we talked about is actually kind of building that into the Momentum CLI. Not because Velociraptor does it poorly or anything like that, but given how new the ecosystem is, we don't know for sure if Velociraptor is going to be the way to go in a year or two. I think it probably will be. It's a really good tool. But when we're getting into Dino, we started getting into the less tools is better kind of world because there are so few tools we need. Yeah. So wrapping Velociraptor with just the Momentum CLI would be a nice feature for everybody else, I think.
Yeah, I can totally imagine. And yeah, it's definitely with an ecosystem this new, you still probably have to figure out which things are worth keeping, which things are worth considering.
Yeah, we're learning. We're trying to figure out what we're going to do about our database package. And a lot of that is scoping out what already exists. Right. Obviously, we're big fans of reusing tools that are solid and opening up to the community to leverage other people's expertise. But we're trying to find the right package for a few of the parts in the system.
Right. Yeah. Let me quickly hook up my keyboard here because it started giving the red light. And I don't want this thing to discharge. Okay, cool. So from a first enable Dino Sport, yes. Okay, there you go. And it now should be enabled. It asked me for it. So from a first inspection, this indeed looks similar to Nest. As we discussed, it does the modules, which load the controllers, the services, and do imports. So dependency injection works as expected for a Node developer.
It's very similar to those. One of the key differences is the way we scope globally. Our services, we went global by default. So you would actually have to explicitly lock it down to modules. So that's kind of like a .NET Core approach, or at least at one point. I'm not sure how accurate that is anymore. But we went that direction. And then, to be honest, Lenny would have been a much better person to talk about it. There's a lot of interesting things he did with our scoping of services that will be fleshed out in our documentation.
But then it's also similar to provided in root in an Angular project.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then I see for this app server global set false, and that means if I want to do it, I still need to import its module that exports it.
So instead of having like a core folder with a core module where you're exporting 1,000 services, you can just have a core folder, and then each individual service can be injected without having to have a module reference. Okay,
very cool, very cool. So yeah, let's see. And I'm gonna do the deno command again and run this server, and now we're up. And editor's here. So what's next?
I'll say one quick note. You're doing a watching command. Again, built into Dino. So no node mod, no extra tools for file watching. I love that. Very quick gain, like instant win to me. So but we're gonna dive into the actual file. We can go to the deps file and kind of talk about how this is working. So these are all of our momentum references. This would be kind of equivalent to what you would see in a package.json. These are all the external vendor tools that you need to run the application. We have the momentum core up top. We're using MVC in this application, and we're serving static files. And if you were to use any other packages, you could throw them here, or I've seen some libraries and some applications actually segment each framework or each library package into its own deps file. But that's what we're doing here. So I'd say the next stop would be main TS. So again, familiar. So with this approach, we have these platforms. The main one right now, obviously, is Platform Oak. That is the kind of like the Dino equivalent of Express. It's a middleware-based routing app framework. So we're leveraging that as our underlying HTTP library. Our goal is that we can switch out what platform we're using. So if you're running as AWS API Gateway Lambda, we can swap that out with Platform Lambda. And that way you're not trying to make everything work in retrospect, but have that be the core of how you're running your application. And all have a very similar interface. So in this case, we're starting up the platform at whatever port you're defining. You want to use deno.env, which again, built into Deno or Deno environment variables. So very happy about that.
Yeah, very cool. And yeah, so Platform Oak, this platform abstraction is also something that is exists in Nest.js, where you can pick between, I think, Express and Fastify at this point.
Yep.
Yeah,
yep, similar premise. But we kind of take the platform idea past just HTTP. So if you want to swap out with like an actual CLI application or just a non-HTTP application in general, you just swap out your platform.
Very cool. So that could be like, as you said, CLI or microservices, like a worker somewhere.
Yeah, or I don't know if WebSockets would be platform specific or anything like that, but
yeah. Very cool. So yeah, okay, cool. And then we basically here we bootstrap our main app module. And another thing that I like already, top level await.
Yeah, I know. That's the first thing I said. I was so excited.
No more function main that you have to do it yourself. And,
I know.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, it's like these little paper cuts, if you will, like the little small things that are not annoying enough to ditch something completely, but are still like meh.
Yeah,
it looks like Ryan took the opportunity to do this.
Yeah, I think Lenny might be listening, but he kept telling me, like, trust me, man, it's better. I'm like, I don't know. And he pointed out something that's a little bit annoying in Node. I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah. And then another one, like, it's not that big of a deal. And I come over and start working in this. I'm like, okay, now that you've grouped all 300 things that are slightly annoying into one experience, I like this.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, nice. I'm definitely feeling it up until now. And now, yeah, we already briefly looked at this. This is like an ng module or an add module in Nest. It's an MV module. And then what I see here is interesting, the MVC handlebars. I already saw a handlebars reference here in MVC in the depths. What is this all about?
Yeah, so the idea being that you can swap out your view engine. So EJS is your preference. Swap out view engine module with MVC EJS module whenever it's ready, and just make that totally modular. So the main one we went with was handlebars. It seems to be one of the bigger choices right now. But I think EJS is next on the list.
Let's already in the background install this plugin because I will need it at some point. But okay, so that's another probably interesting thing to mention that I really didn't consider. So we admired a little bit this screen, but it's actually server-side rendered. Server-side rendered page. So the Deno server that we're running, the Momentum framework, renders this out and sends you the HTML to the front end.
Yes, sir.
Very cool. Yeah. And cool. So here the app module. So this is where we say, okay, basically use this as an engine. And I think in Nest, this is something you have to do yourself. So, okay, so this is all part of the MVC package that you built.
Right. Well, one thing that Nest does, that's pretty, they abstracted a little bit, but it's still kind of your middleware pipeline. So app.use, you're going to pass it Express or it's not Express, but handlebars or whatever. For us, we kind of take it out a level into the actual module space. And that seems to be a bit of a better design for what we're trying to do. We found that to be a little bit cleaner.
Yeah. And this might be an influence that comes more from the .NET area then?
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, perfect. Static file module. Okay, I think this does as it says on the tin. You probably it finds your static assets somewhere and it hosts them.
Yep. So by default, it's going to point at content. And like with the view module, we have a lot of options in here to make it pretty configurable. But by default, we have the views folder for your view engine with static files. We throw you into content by default, but all that stuff is configurable to whatever you'd like to do.
Very cool. Awesome. Simple bootstrap here. Yeah, simple color scheme. Very cool. Okay, and then service, we already opened that one up, and the controller here is just a top-level controller and /index. So this means if I visit, just experimenting here, just this one. Oh.
No, so that's actually that's still routed to the root. The @view index is actually referencing the view file that you're pointing at.
I get it. We're rendering this view, and then the data that gets passed in comes from the service. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, I get it. It's not a hello momentum, and then this hello momentum is whatever gets output here.
Yep.
Awesome, cool. So yeah, this looks pretty nice. Actually, just as a side thing, this allows for building, I guess server-side rendered web pages. As right now, server-side rendered. I think a lot of people think server-side rendered is when you render your SPA on the server, but it's actually just anything we did before SPAs were a thing was just server-side rendering. So
yeah, the term kind of got conflated into take my JavaScript to the server, but
we still agree that this what we're doing right here is just plain old good old server-side rendering. Cool. So server-side rendering page building. Now I did an experiment. I think it's about maybe a year and a half ago, where I started building a project from scratch using Handlebars in Nest as a backend, just on the API, as I would do, let's say 5 years ago when I was a PHP developer, or so 7 years ago, I don't know. And I really liked the experience. It was pretty straightforward, up until the moment where I wanted to build interactions, where I wanted to have a little bit more of what you expect from a thing. What's your take on that? Do you use any of this server-side rendered stuff as is, or?
So one thing that's really interesting that Lenny's working on right now with me, we're building a product, and he's been using that actually to drive the development of this framework. And one of the philosophies we've been trying to go with is the idea of no tooling, or as low to no tooling as possible. So he's actually been using Stimulus.js, which is new to me and pretty new to him, but it allows you to really sprinkle in that interaction without having to pay the price of bringing in a bundler, bringing in transpilation, all that kind of stuff. You still get a lot of the ES6 features because most people by now have a browser that supports it. So for the most part, Stimulus.js has been really, really good about that. To me, I'm either going with a full SPA, or I'm going to be using something like Stimulus to do the really light interactivity and stuff like that. There's a few tools out there that do it well, but you're still going to have to pay that price of getting those build tools in place, which sometimes isn't really worth it. So that's been a really interesting thing that we've been working with.
Yeah, super interesting. I really like these, seeing this movement, and so far it looks super polished already, and it looks like something you could definitely use as a base to spin up something quickly, something you'd like to prototype.
Yeah, so, I've been loving working with it. Like I said, I'm not doing the core of it, so I get to be a user as well, and I get to watch all the things that he's adding. And we have a lot of modules we want to add that we're really excited about. But where it is right now has been really fun to build apps in, and a lot of the small paper cuts are gone, so it's all the fun parts of writing TypeScript on the server side without some of the annoyances. So it's been fun.
Cool. Yeah, I can definitely see that. It's interesting that this one doesn't get picked up here.
I will say that in VS Code, I'm also having these kinds of issues where the extensions are still like not quite there.
Yeah.
I think once it starts building up a little bit of momentum, we'll start seeing those tools really mature. But it is a little bit annoying for now.
Yeah. No, I can. Yeah, that's probably the price of being like an early adopter.
Yeah.
And it's these little things, but yeah. Okay, awesome. And things that I would miss, like in if you open a NX workspace with tests, you have a little play icon here that runs tests. So it's kind of things like these that are not there yet.
Yeah.
But other than that, it all looks promising, and this test also looks pretty straightforward. I think that's probably the biggest selling point for Deno. If you're coming from Node or TypeScript with Node, you can just move the logic over make sure that your depths are working, but you can probably reuse a whole bunch of stuff that you already have laying around.
It was very convincing to me. I've been doing a lot of leak code lately, and it's been nice to have Dino for that, because I can have my tests built in. Like, I just run Dino run this file and everything just goes. I don't have to worry about getting all that other stuff set up. So it's been really great for that. It's been really pretty painless. So
cool. Yeah, very nice. Let's say hi to Brandon here. Hey, Brandon, good to see you around. And if you have any questions about Deno or the Momentum framework, don't hesitate. We got Kerry here with us for a bit more. And yeah, I'd love to take some next steps. So what is, do you have something that's, that we can look at adding, maybe some dynamic data, or?
I mean, yeah, we can try spinning up a REST API or something. We got an MVC controller, so let's do a REST API.
That sounds cool.
Now, if we had the CLI up and running, we would be able to use some generate commands. But since we don't, we can just spin up a new controller. Hey, that made a thing.
I can actually, well, I'm just, it should turn green if it recognizes it. I'm just going to run the installer again because I'm kind of, no.
It might be something to do with your path variables not set up to point at the Dino directory.
Yeah.
I think we've had some issues with that on the Unix systems.
Okay, but it should be, okay, it should be simple enough. Okay, so let me go ahead and add this one here. So that would be home dot Dino bin, and then source it. There you go. Ha.
Yay!
We do have it. Yeah, I wasn't set up correctly. This is what you get when you don't test it out. Yesterday, Kerry asked, "Are you set up?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got it all installed." But
I would much rather you have run into it on a live stream, because somebody else will too. So I'm all open to that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Version 080. So cool. We got that one running. So now we can run. Just to make sure I'm in the project. Yes.
So do me a favor and change directory into source.
Yep.
And then let's start running stuff from there.
Cool.
Again, alpha. So I want to make sure I'm doing everything.
Yeah.
Everything I know for sure is going to work.
Let's also, as good practice, do a git init here. I know we already have. No, git.
Oh, you might want to.
Just
you might need to rimwrap that .git folder.
Yep. Let me do that. Git init, and then initial commit here first. Edits for code I didn't write. Always good. Cool. Okay, so we're here. We have a clean app. We're inside the SRC folder, and I can run MVF.
So you can generate a module, you can generate a controller, generate a service. You got all the shorthands. So I'm gonna see if you can take a guess at what you can do.
So let's say I'm not very much of a cat person, and dogs are kind of boring. Let's make a beer API. I know that you like beer. I like beer. And
yeah, there we go.
Yeah, cool. So coming from Angular/Nest, I would start out with a beer module, add a beer controller there and a beer service, and then add some tap functionality at some point.
Yeah.
That seems like a cool thing to do. So MVF generate module here, and I also would probably
We do not have a driver. We live on the edge, so
that's cool. And in pure Unix style, I would say no output is success, means success. So if there's no error message, you generally have success. So this generated the beer folder for us and updated the app module here. So it actually imported it there. Very cool. And this right here. And then another thing I'm interested about is that it looks like it detected this change already and it restarts.
And it was so fast, right?
Yeah, I didn't see how fast it was because I didn't have my eyes on it. But yeah, Now, this is something that I really like, because this is things you do all the time, like adding new scaffolding out new stuff and importing it and making sure it works. And so that's all pretty cool. And then here it added a beer module. It gave me the Angular logo, which I'm not sad about. That's perfect. So it added this MV module, and then, okay, let's continue and say, do the same for controller. And see where this is going. Bam, there you go. Added beer controller to the controllers. This is an empty one here. And then gonna go with the service. And that got added here as well. Cool. That's pretty cool. And well, I might as well continue what I would do normally. I would say, okay, let's first make sure that this one gets injected. Private read-only service, beer service. And then is that service that.
So one interesting thing that people might have noticed is the import commands and actually have the file extensions in Dino. So
right.
Yeah, if you watch one of the talks, he talks about the fact that he dropped the file extensions. Like, I thought it was cute, but it was stupid.
Yeah.
And it says the same thing about index.js. He's like, I thought just using index would be cute, but again, it was just stupid. So
yeah,
you don't have index anymore. You can't just reference a barrel file like that, and you have file extensions on all these, on all the imports.
Yeah, definitely interesting thing to point at. And this also kind of echoes the fact, the imports are something you can probably not copy straight away from your things. And then depending on whatever you do in your code, you can reuse code you have. But I definitely think this difference in imports is interesting move, probably for the better. Have it be explicit rather than implicit.
Yeah.
And if you have a plain JS file, does that work as well?
I haven't tried it yet, to be honest. I'm not entirely sure. I would imagine it would work because it's TypeScript under the hood. So I'd imagine it would allow a .js.
Yeah. But if you have TypeScript, why would you torture yourself?
I would say I'm not doing that. I'm using TypeScript.
Yeah. Why? Yeah. Okay, so here is my beer service. It has a tab method that just says, here you are. And but this is not really REST API, but this was the first thing I came up with. And then I think I saw something like that. So it's interesting that it all imports from depths. And the reason I think this is interesting is because it's basically re-exported here, right?
Yep.
And what I like about this is that you automatically basically extract away whatever your library you're working with. So inside all of our controllers and modules and services, there's probably not a direct reference to one of your Dino/Momentum framework endpoints. Is that correct?
Yeah, which is both good and slightly annoying, because now, so imagine copy and pasting a folder, which would typically reference a direct path to a package. It's now referencing a deps file, and that hierarchy can change. So writing the CLI, for instance, that was really annoying, and I kind of wished it didn't do that. But overall, for the most part, it's been preferable.
Yeah, and so in tsconfig, we generally have paths. Is there something that exists in the Deno world or Dino world, or is that not a thing you're aware of?
They recently, in Dino 1.8, they did launch import mapping. So you can do something like that. I haven't done it yet, but that was, I think, within the last week. So yeah, that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would definitely probably solve a few of these issues. So cool. Okay, so I have get, and now the controller is beer. So what I think we should now end up with is I go to 3000/beer. Here you are. Okay, cool. This all works pretty much as expected. This is very cool. Yeah,
that's what we're going for.
Yeah,
we're trying to find what's most intuitive. So I'm glad you agree.
Yeah, cool. Well, this is the testament if you need one. Cool. And then from here on out, it's gonna be probably very much predictable. A list of beers, an individual beer, create, read, and update beers.
Yep.
Is there any shorthands, or is it just as I would do with the Nest.js controller? Just write it out as we go, and that's about it.
Yeah, it would essentially be the same way. We don't have any libraries that shortcut that. We have some ideas about some things we want to do to make CRUD API development a little easier, taking inspiration from things like Django REST framework and some of the stuff Ruby on Rails does. Taking some of those ideas, but we got some bigger fish to fry, and that we don't have a database package yet. So we're trying to build a roadmap and figure out what we need to be doing. But that is something I am excited about.
Yeah, but I definitely agree that this is not the place where you're going to gain most. It's probably good to have some database first. And
yeah, we have a solution for it. Like I said, we've been building an app in this framework for a little while, but we just haven't kind of built one that we want to outright support yet. So we're trying to find out what we want to do there.
Yeah, I would love if Prisma would work with Deno. Prisma is my DB abstraction of choice. I really like it.
I haven't got to mess with that yet. You're going to use @param there on the args.
Okay, yeah. @param, and this should import from deps. Okay, cool. And then pass that beer ID in here, and then let's create this method here, and also create the multiple one. And then here I would say, just make a list of beers here.
Yeah.
Beer DB is what I'm going to call it. And I'm going to put one of my all-time favorites, although I haven't drunk it for ages. And what are we going to say?
Unfamiliar.
Unfamiliar?
Yeah, I haven't had it. Let's see.
German Weizenbier.
I have had that. I went to Germany and we stopped at a gas station, and I saw how cheap beer was in Germany. I'm like, this is awesome. And I just grabbed like this, walking out like a little kid in a candy store with a bunch of beer in my hand.
I can totally imagine. And in Germany, I'm not sure if still, but yeah, definitely at the gas station, which in the Netherlands, which is country next to Germany, it's totally unheard of. Like, you would not buy beer in a gas station. But let's add one of yours. What do you want to add as a DB here, DB entry?
I've actually been drinking non-alcoholic beers lately. I've been doing some training, and this is a little better for it. BrewDog Punk AF.
Cool. I didn't know. I do know BrewDog.
Yeah, they got. I've been dabbling in the non-alcoholics for a little bit, and they're surprisingly good.
Very cool. And let's put percentage at 1. And country BrewDog. You know where they're from? Is it from the US? No, they're from Europe.
Yeah, they're somewhere in the UK. Todd from Ultimate Course has actually kind of turned me on to them.
Cool.
He is in Frasenburg, United Kingdom.
Yeah, okay, cool. Let's put UK there, and 0.0. Definitely going to see if I can find a nice alcohol-free BrewDog here. So cool. So, and then here we can just simply return the beer DB, and here we can return this .beerdb.find and just do some in-memory database stuff here. Beer ID. So yeah, I think for me, working with this would be, for a big part, would be a pretty non-event, because yeah, it appears that this just talks the same way I talk, if you want to put it that way. Now I'm interested in, okay, this should have a tab method here.
I say we got 2 there that are matching.
Yeah. And the server's still running, so that's good. And now I can say here, there you go. Okay, cool. I'm going to pipe it through to JQ, so we have a bit of a pretty output here. /beer, and then /beer/1. This would be the 1, and this would be the 2. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, it's kind of nice how happy I am that it's so surprisingly easy, and that I invite you to ask over. But this could have just been in me exploring Momentum session.
Well, now we can share it with everybody else. So
Yeah, that's perfect. No, and I definitely appreciate all the comments and explanations about this. So that's perfect. Yeah, I think this looks definitely super powerful. Is there anything else you like to look at or you like to show? Something fun or extraordinary. Maybe we can actually look at it installing this Velociraptor thing now that we have the CLI running.
Yeah, there we go.
And see what that workflow would look like.
Let's see. So Velociraptor, Dino. It's pretty much the same approach. They give you a script to run and it'll process locally. Let me find the latest version.
Yeah, cool.
They've been like really going at it. They have a lot of support, which is great because we definitely need a script runner.
Yeah, I think that's another thing I like about package.json is having these kind of things. And I'm not saying that it's the best implementation, but just having scripts somewhere is nice. And I found myself doing the same in Go, but this is obviously not idiomatic. And in Go, what's most common is makefile, just whatever you use on Unix anyway. But then make is something very unnatural for a Windows user. That's not something that's done there. So cool. And another thing that's interesting to note here, and this is something we've been doing for years, but when I grew up on Unix, which is about like 99, so it's about, 22 years ago, it was like very frowned upon executing code from a URL. That was like something you don't do. Never curl something from HTTP into your shell because now this makes it obvious that you do it because you pass in a URL, and this is what alerts me directly, and I get used to it. But it's not very different than doing npm install because, like, in the background, npm will do the same thing for you. And I think a lot of it's been proven pretty often that people can hide like Trojan horses in npm packages and execute whatever runs in your system.
Yeah, left pad and whatnot.
Yeah,
those things getting removed. We're not going to have that issue here because everything's decentralized. So that's also interesting.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. And then, but then also this is a central repository, but nothing prevents you from running your own Denoland. If I want to run bmanland, I can totally do so.
Yeah,
just source my own stuff.
And they also released in 1.8 some functionality to make it easier for authenticated private repos. So if you're working at enterprise, what you would typically have to do through a tool like Nexus to get a private repo, you can now essentially get out of the box by setting up basic auth with your URLs. Again, not something I've dabbled with yet, but it looks pretty promising. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that.
Very cool. Yeah, that's definitely interesting and something that would help adoption in the enterprise.
Yeah.
So then with VR installed.
Yep, so now you can just do VR start, VR test, VR format.
This is already something that I like, that it shows what it has. Now, and actually something I was curious about. So let's do a git add here. So we see all the changes that I made to do this. And then VR kindly informed me that it knows format, which is listed there. It checked 10 files. This is also lightning fast.
Yeah.
I really like it. It does add semicolons.
Yeah, so there's interesting changes here. So in Nest and in typical TypeScript, you're single quoting. Now we're double quoting again. And I was a little taken aback by it, but whatever, run format, it'll do all the things it wants to do. But there are some differences.
Yep. Oh yeah, that's what you get with an opinionated. It does have the trailing comma, which I like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think few things as personal as prettier config or these kind of similar linting tools. And I also really like, and I feel like I don't like my code being run by Prettier, but I like my coworkers' code being run by the same Prettier because that makes it legible. So yeah, cool. And then we can run the start dev command, and this will probably fail because already running on this port, which totally makes total sense. So let's stop it here and run it again.
I will say that this watcher, I get headaches with Angular and sometimes Nest where new files in particular or deleted files, the watchers just choke on it sometimes. I don't know why.
Yep.
But I've never had that problem with Dino Watcher. I don't know what kind of magic they cooked in here, but it doesn't fail like that. So I don't know if it's just a property of not transpiling or what, but it's been a much cleaner solution.
Yeah, I can totally imagine that that's a huge difference. And in fact, so big part of Deno is written in Rust, or big part, I don't know, but there are parts written in Rust, and this might be one of these things that are not handled in JS or TS.
Yeah. They started writing it in TypeScript, and then at some point they changed their mind and switched it all over to Rust. So
yeah,
with that came, I imagine, a fair bit of performance.
Yeah, but still, the programming language you actually write in is TypeScript, which is great for adoption and doing quick scripting.
Yep.
Well, and frankly, onboarding people quickly, because I cannot really imagine. I've very little experience with Rust itself. I cannot imagine I would be able to write without really a lot of help these things just by the intuition. So yeah, awesome, pretty cool. And then one thing we didn't really touch on, but I'm interested in. So 2021 is my year of testing. I'm going to do more testing more seriously. I've been pretty good at it so far. We're in March, 2 months. Yeah, I did my fair share of tests.
Diving in.
The big issue with me is, and this is an excuse. I know it's not a valid excuse, but it's kind of like people don't really pay me to write tests. And this is the wrong attitude, because I should be saying, no, the code that I deliver will be tested. So it's not a negotiable thing. But
yeah, it's a hard habit to break. Like I can totally see it there.
Yeah. And I used to work at a startup with a CEO that just wouldn't accept PRs without tests. So that's cool. So that's you got that one protecting you from doing it. And then you're on your own and free, and clients often, frankly, don't care about it. And if they don't care and I don't care, there's no test going to be written. But
yeah, reducing friction to making sure the tests are good is pretty vital for that reason. If you're in those kind of situations and it's painful to write the tests, people aren't going to want to write the test. But if you're in a situation where it's part of the culture, or it's proven to actually help you move faster, then yeah, I think people are going to write them. And I think Deno does a really good job of making sure that is the case.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, it already having the test runner built in is already super nice, and so it ran. It has no issues, so that's good. Also, pretty much to be expected. I mean, and I could go on and implement the tests here, but I think this is fairly straightforward as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of familiar stuff.
Yeah, definitely see that. Now, one of the things I was curious about, going back to this depth, because this depth is fascinating, and it's probably something I need to continue the Preston's course a little bit further, so I get into testing, into the depths. But this being just TypeScript makes me think I can just build my own structure here, right? So I can just split out stuff. It's just another file. It's just called deps.ts by convenience, but it's not at all something special. Is that correct?
Correct. You can name it whatever you want. You can kind of do whatever you want inside of here. The CLI that I was working on actually has dynamic imports, and like the same way you reference a URL, you can dynamically import the reference, and it'll actually figure that out. I thought I was shocked by that one. I didn't expect that to actually work. Yeah. And I tried it, and it did exactly what I wanted it to. So there's a lot of power in the way you can actually import and export these URLs. The general procedure has been your deps.ts is like your package.json for importing things, and if you're building a library, your index.ts is now mod.ts, so module.ts.
Right.
But like I said, those are just kind of community standards. Whether or not you want to do that yourself, up to you.
Yeah, that's very cool. Maybe it would be interesting to quickly go over what the code looks like, and then specifically the CLI that's what you worked on. Gonna pop this one over here, and I assume it's here in the Momentum Framework org in here, the first Stargazer. I'm just not logged in. Let's not bother at this moment. But then Is it the Momentum repo itself?
That is the one. This is the CLI folder inside of there.
Very cool. So
you can find that.
And then, okay, this is the project. Has a top-level TS config. It has its own depths. Is there something that makes this a library instead of the others, or is it just because we put it in a folder? That's what makes it a separate library.
Yeah, that's it. We don't have to do anything special as far as package JSON management or anything like that. When you install, it actually just puts the reference to main.ts as the MVF command, and caches locally and goes on its way. Another thing, like that's another great thing about this, is all the files inside of this project, they're essentially their own package, but they're all in the same repo, and it didn't take a bunch of effort to make those build processes work. They just do work. So I thought that was really exciting.
Yeah. And definitely things, if you hear them, people are like, okay, that sounds cool, until you work with it and you've come from the other side.
Yeah. That's part of it. Like, we know that part of our job, if we want people to use Momentum, is to help them use Dino. And it's hard to sell Dino, because even I was a hard sell. I'm like, look, I'm happy in Node. Nest is great. Node is great. I don't need anything new. So it's going to be hard to take it from something that isn't painful into something that is really, really, really good.
Yeah.
And not to say the others aren't, but like you said, death by 1,000 paper cuts or whatever that is, that's a little gruesome. This is has some clear advantages, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely see that. And then this is the main file, and it's just start program here, which by itself looks very similar. You're actually using Momentum here?
Yeah, we actually use Momentum to build the Momentum CLI.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
So if you go to the commands folder, we're actually using the dependency injection to do a lot of our work for us. So actually, this is a really good thing to point out, is when I started work on this, I'm like, it'd be really nice to just use Commander, Google Dino commander.js, and there actually is a tool out there that essentially does the same thing. We were looking for databasing tools, kind of search for a tool that we already know. I think it was Next or Knext. Never really learned how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
But search Dino Next, and you have a similar tool for Dino. And there's a bunch of cases where it's like, I sure wish I could use this tool. I wonder if it exists. And it does, because people are excited about the ecosystem and already building these things. So it was a lot further along than I expected it to be. But
yeah, that's pretty cool. I can definitely see the utility of that. And also that means that you're not the very first early adopters. It's definitely Dino's at 1.0. There's stuff available. Like Oak, you didn't have to write your own HTTP handlers or all that stuff. Routing was just something that you could tap into and reuse. Yeah,
it feels like we're right at a sweet spot where we're early enough to do something new and exciting, but we're not so early that we have to do all the work ourselves.
Yeah, very cool.
There's still plenty of work for us to do, but like I said, we're not writing HTTP middleware or anything like that.
Yeah, and then generate file. This is the thing I ran, I think, ngg. Now here we do see a mod.ts. This is basically your public API then?
In this case, it's really more of just a barrel file in index.ts.
Right.
So the module file is referencing this a level up, but it's not really meant to be a public API.
Right. So here it's that's actually the generate file, but same idea. And then here, actually, I've been working on a CLI built on Nest.js, built by one of the community members. I think it's called Nest.js command or something. And I really liked it. It might be a bit counterintuitive to use Nest for your APIs, but for me, having the mental map and just being able to provide a few commands and do the right thing and clean them, separate them out by module as I used to, is very nice. And it's very compelling for me that I can reuse actually parts of my API in the CLI. So I can just execute literally the same logic or connect to the same database same way. So there's a lot to be said for these kind of things. Yeah, very cool. Something else you like to point out here in the repo? Something interesting we can check out, or any?
I'm sure that Lenny will be mad that I'm not going to recommend we go looking at his dependency container stuff. He did a lot of a lot of magic that's probably a little above my my head.
Well, I might have to invite Lenny at some point to come on and join and tell a bit more about what he did here.
I don't let him talk. I keep him at work. He's chained up at his desk. He's got to keep making features. No, he's great, super smart guy. Highly recommend you talk to him. He can tell you all about the IOC containers and whatnot. So
yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in having some more in-depth sessions about this. So Lenny, I'm definitely gonna shout out to you and reach out to you and invite you at some point. I'm also definitely going to be staying on the topic of Deno because I think it's super interesting. I'm going to be inviting Preston Lamp here soon as well. Last time he was here, we talked about NX and GitHub Actions, and this time I hope to have him on about Deno, but I'll do some more work on it and actually figure out if I've got like questions I don't understand. Because yeah, I think this is nice, but inevitably I'm going to be running into something like, how should this work right here? So best way is probably just start coding. Denoland is the repo, right, that we use for this.
That is the most popular one right now. Like I said, it's decentralized. So there's Deno.land, there's Nest.land is another big one I keep seeing. I don't know why it's called Nest.land. It has nothing to do with Nest Framework. But those are the two big ones, which makes it kind of interesting because you kind of have to find the tool and then find out how to install it from there versus just going to npmjs.org, which is very much intentional. But there's just no one central location to go find all the tools.
It's a paradigm shift, definitely.
It is.
And so the thing I was curious about, I don't think I see a search function here. Is there a package search, or do you just Google it?
I just been Googling it. So when I wanted to find a commander tool, I just searched Deno commander. Those packages typically show up pretty quick, so I haven't really had any problems there.
I'm also a big fan. Have you checked GraphQL with Oak?
I've not used it yet.
Okay.
I am interested though.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, if you think about working on this, want to explore it, I'm definitely interested in checking it out. It's
yeah.
Yeah.
We need all the help we can get. So GraphQL is a big item. Databases are a big item. Anybody that wants to contribute, we are absolutely open to it. We do have a Discord channel up, which I switched over to Discord recently, so I'm on your Angular community Discord.
Awesome. So cool. So yeah, let's plug this one in. We have a vanity URL, but you need like, I don't know, 1,000 members for that to start. Actually, today we reached 7,000 members in the Discord, and you're one of them, so that's awesome. Yeah, that's a random shameless plug here for the Discord. I'll make sure I'll link your Discord in the description here. Let's make sure that we copy these ones over. Or are they in the repo as well? That might
they should be on the website if you go to momentumframework.org.
I'm getting a new keyboard.
Getting adjusted?
Crazy, yeah. Yeah, here we are. Cool.
Yeah, so looks like we haven't thrown the link on there, but it is on our Twitter handle or in our Twitter feed.
Okay, cool. So here is the Twitter, and it
yeah,
should
I'll make sure to throw up some links. So anybody that's watching this by the time this time tomorrow, I should have that updated with a Discord link and all that. So
awesome. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, we'll make sure to do this. I think that's about it. I'm super impressed with how this looks, and it looks pretty mature actually. I think it's a very pleasant experience so far.
Glad you think so. I think we built a strong framework. It's just time to start building all the tools on top of it. So
yeah, cool, awesome. Also, another interesting thing: after running the tests, it downloaded it here. This already that was already visible, but it also fixed these imports here up here. So it's a bit cleaner ever since. So that's super nice. Yeah. as said, thanks a lot for being here and helping me out, telling me about momentum and taking my baby steps into Deno here. This is definitely not intimidating at all. So, and that's not a sarcastic. That's a serious thing. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Awesome. Make sure to check out Ultimate Courses. There's an SJS course from Kerry on there. So you should be able to download the ebook for free, if I'm correct.
You are correct. Absolutely free.
Awesome. 100% free. There's not a better thing than a free courses, maybe free beer, but that's another thing. Kerry, thanks much for being here. Everybody, thanks for watching. This was BLS, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Cool.